Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Nerds with Friends. My name is Cody Leach. As always, I'm joined by Christian Garcia.
Yo, I almost did not make it today.
Yeah, you're running a little late.
I told Cody it was traffic, but in fact, my cat fell asleep on me.
I hate you so
we have
much.
a strict, if the cat's on you, you don't disturb the cat rule.
Great.
I'm kidding, it was traffic.
Good.
But I did have the cat on me.
Okay, good to know where your priorities lie. And joining us via the magic of the internet, we have acclaimed author Madeleine Roux, return guest. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me back. It's been ages.
I know. Yeah, you were talking before. You haven't seen the new video setup in the studio where we're surrounded by toys.
It's so cool.
Yeah, finally we have a spot to kind of place all those, impulse buys we get at Comic-Con, we just kind of fill the shelves with it.
Which I'm so happy because I would not in the new condo, I would not have any space.
Yeah, exactly. Space
You look,
is a premium.
You look really air conditioned too. I don't know if that's just a guess, but
well, it never really gets above 65 degrees here in San Francisco, so it's just that natural air conditioning. Though it was a little warm in here, so it is cooled down a little bit.
65 is hot for us anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've been having like the wildest summer in Seattle. It's like swinging between 55 and 90.
Oh my gosh.
You never know what it's going to be day to day.
Yeah, it's like you got to wear those like tearaway pants and or the ones that zip off into shorts. Those never look good though. The zip off short ones. Well, we'll get some of our business out of the way. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, all the good stuff. It's always at Nerds with Friends. And if you want to support the show, check out patreon.com/nerdswithfriends. For a couple dollars a month, you can help support the show and buy us more set dressings.
Yeah, and there's another Rodecaster Pro that we want.
Yeah, there's a new mixer that just came out. It's really hot in the podcasting world, so
I don't know what it does that's different than this one, but we still want it.
It has some cool stuff. Trust me, I looked into it.
Gotta have it. Gotta have it.
Well, we like to start the show off with a little section we call Nerdy Confessions, where we confess the things that make us nerds. We'll lead it off, and then you can jump in. I'm sure you have a couple for us, too. So, Christian, why don't you lead us off?
My nerdy confession is I should start. Did you finish Stranger Things? I should ask. Did you watch it?
No, I'm quite behind. So
then I won't get too deep into it.
Yeah,
but
it was great.
It was great.
The finale was excellent.
I'm glad I asked. So I'll modify it. I've been listening on repeat, and it's my new workout song to Kate Bush's "Running Up That Hill."
Nice.
It's
Kate Bush is I'm sure very pleasantly surprised by all the attention she's gotten
Bush
recently.
Summer. And I sent it to my brother, and he sent me like a remix one. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, I guess it's I can't talk about it too much because you haven't seen it. It's in the show, and there's a cool part.
Yeah,
and it's a great version of it. Then he sent me a Japanese version. I was like, ooh, I don't like this at all. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. It wasn't my thing. He really liked it. But yes, I've been listening to it on repeat, and it's my new gym song.
Well, the music in Stranger Things is always so good.
Yeah.
That no matter what song they put in there, I feel like the whole summer is soundtracked by that song. So I like it too. It's been a while since I had heard that song, and then it comes up, and now it's freaking on all the TikToks and all the
product of the '80s, and I've never heard it before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought the show actually made it up. I did.
Wow.
I'd never heard it.
That hurts.
That would be that'd be rough. Now I will say I was never I'm not an avid Kate Bush fan, but I've heard the song before. It's one of those like classic, like I don't know if you'd call it a power ballad. I guess so.
I don't know. And I love terrible '80s movies, as you know, and I guess it's just never been in one.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. It's a good one for sure. It's a banger, as the kids would say. My nerdy confession: I went away for the 4th of July weekend with some buddies, and over the weekend we brought a bunch of board games. We played like 3 games of Wingspan. We played 2 or 3 games of Warhammer 40,000 Munchkin. We played Star Trek Settlers of Catan and Star Trek Flux. So we had a nerd out weekend for sure.
I like to think that you knew I was busy, which is why I wasn't invited. That's we'll just go.
Yeah, I figured you had things going on. I thought you were moving or something. But yeah, and we also played a bunch of disc golf, so it's not like we totally nerded out and didn't go outside. But yeah, it was fun to just kind of chill out and, drink a couple beers and play a bunch of board games.
Speaking of which, these are not Mickeys that we're drinking.
Oh, yeah.
Sparkling water.
Yeah, for our video.
I was actually curious. I was going to ask.
Yeah,
I have like some green tea, and I was like, oh, man.
Yeah, we're turning up with the Mountain Valley sparkling water. Yeah, they do look like 40s.
4 o'clock. I suppose we could have coordinated.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're only 33.8 ounces, so it's not really a true 40, but they do look suspect for sure. How about you, Madeleine? What's a good nerdy confession for you?
Oh my gosh. I guess I have sort of two. I just finally, it's like all healed up for this round, but I started on my half sleeve on this arm, on my right arm, which was tragically blank up until now, and it's going to be my Dragon Age half sleeve. So,
Ooh.
Really good friend of mine, Katie Small, who tattoos out of Arizona. She was up here visiting, and we go way back. So we actually had planned this since, like, as the pandemic was hitting, I put the deposit down.
Oh,
and
no.
we started, she started doing the art, and we were, dreaming it up. So this is a tattoo long in the making. But yeah, so that's exciting. It's going to take a while since, she's not local, and
Sure.
It's going to need color and so on. But so that was exciting. And I also today in the mail just got the, it was like one of the last ones available, and it's the core rule book for the Star Wars tabletop for their like Dungeons and Dragons. And I finally pulled the trigger on it because I've been dying to run a Star Wars game. So
nice.
I'm gonna
Is it Star Wars Legion? Is that what it is, or that's more of like a war game?
Is it by Wizards of the Coast?
Let me look. I don't want to mess this up. It'll be right. It'll be really like right in my history. It's the revised core rule book, Star Wars role playing game.
Okay.
By Andy Collins, JD Wicker. I don't know how to pronounce that. And a few
shout
others.
out to them.
Yeah.
Shout out to those people. Yeah. So it's just for I'm actually going to homebrew my own setting. I'm going to do
Very cool.
like the Republic set 500 years-ish after the events of like The Force Awakens.
Oh, okay. So way in the future.
Do sort of a thought experiment of like how Rey would rebuild or not rebuild the Jedi Order, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I think that's cool because I mean, there's been a lot of talk. The Star Wars comic books and novels have been going like way back into the High Republic days, but not much talk has been of where the future would lead in Star Wars. So that would be a really cool thought experiment to kind of see where everything ends up, and if the the Republic coming back is really a good thing. And
it would be Palpatine again, just more clones in the future.
Trust me, it's not gonna be this time.
This time we're doing it right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be fun. I'm doing, I'm trying not to just fall back on sort of the, there just tends to be sort of a cycle in these that happens of like how the Republic looks and how it functions and et cetera. So, and it'll be also really interesting to sort of to play on like, well, 500 years from now, how will these events be looked back on, right? Like who will be remembered fondly and how and those kind of things.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Is everyone just going to be doing the Holdo maneuver over and over again, or is that going to be outlawed as a war crime,
Yeah.
Well, if you need players,
it'll be fun.
Hit us up.
Maybe we can like zoom you in for like a one session.
Yeah, exactly. We'll play a couple like surly Star Traders or something.
I'll be a droid for sure.
Yeah. That's cool. So do you play as different like factions? Is that kind of where the role playing comes in on that game?
No, it'll be just sort of like a Dungeons in the setup of like there'll be a kind of a party, right? We'll have to get them together. I'm sure someone will be a Jedi type, someone will be a smuggler type, right?
Yeah.
You'll kind of have like I actually don't know how many people are playing yet, so that'll sort of change that.
But that's kind of like the class setup is like Jedi, smuggler, pilot.
Yeah. So that's why I got the rule book is just more for those sorts of things, right? The really basic how the dice rolls work, that kind of stuff, all the classes work. But in terms of the actual like setting and story, that's going to be all homebrew.
I'm trying to think of in D&D a Jedi would be what, a paladin? right? I guess.
Yeah, I think you can
probably
specialize into different things. You can be the healer if you want to, or you can be the tank or damage. Yeah.
Maybe you could be like a gray Jedi or something, or like a Sith user, or
depending on your like weapon style and things like
Yeah.
that.
Smuggler would definitely just be a rogue. Like what? Like I can't.
Yeah, but like maybe you could be like, it could be like a rogue / like a gunslinger, from Pathfinder. If you never really played Pathfinder, but
ships become really important too. So having a piloting skills and stuff like that.
Yeah, I actually played my first time dungeon mastering any game ever was we played a game of Starfinder, which is like the sci-fi version of Pathfinder, which is like kind of like Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. Yeah. And I don't know why I was chosen to be the dungeon master for this game none of us had ever played.
But you're the English major.
Yeah, I guess. that did not come into play, unfortunately. I just could read faster, I guess. But it was really interesting. The ship combat was really, really fun. Like everyone had a role in the ship. Like, one guy's doing repairs, one guy's manning the guns, one guy's maneuvering. And it was really cool to see that kind of interaction. And I imagine they would probably have something like that. You got to have like Chewie fixing the Millennium Falcon while, Han's flying and Luke's in the little thing, so.
I think you can also tailor it to like, there are certain parts of the story that they may or may not be interested in. I'm a very like, we're just going to keep this fun kind of dungeon master. I'm not like a super like rule based
absolutely
DM. I prefer to just make sure everyone's having a good time. So.
Yeah. Well, we've been lucky enough to have quite a few professional dungeon masters, I guess is the best way to put it, on the show. And everyone kind of agrees. Like fun and like having a good time and telling a great story is always paramount to making sure the rules are 100% followed to the T. Because I'm the same way. I forget rules all the time, but as long as it sounds cool and everyone's having fun, I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah, I had a feeling you definitely fudge rolls on our game.
I didn't say I fudge rolls, Christian. That's a little different.
There's a screen there for a reason. If you need to just, if they're getting creamed or they're steamrolling it, you just, artificially bump up those HP a little bit. No big deal.
I'll never admit it, but there might have been something like that going on. But so, I mean, I guess this is a perfect segue. One of the upcoming projects you have working on actually has quite a bit to do with Dungeons and Dragons. You've already done I think one book in the Dungeon Academy series, right? Mm-hmm. But now you have one focusing on Critical Role and what was the character's name? Lucien. Mm-hmm. I'm bad with all my Critical Role characters, so I'm going
a lot of characters.
Yeah,
I've only did like 2 or 3 episodes of the second campaign. I finished the first campaign, but I know, I guess, the beginning part of the. I didn't want to read too much because I definitely want to get the book and read it. And that was going to be one of my questions, was like, if we didn't listen to any of the campaign, would we still be able to follow along in the book?
Yeah.
That's a tricky question. Of course, the bookseller in me wants to say yes. You could just jump right in and it would all make sense. But I think, at a certain point, to tell a book that isn't 900,000 pages long, we had to more focused on it for people who are familiar with the material. So this is also sort of like the very end arc of that season. So he as a character really doesn't come up till pretty far in. So it's one of those things where it's a time investment. I mean, I had to get caught up on all of it. Like I had started listening in the pandemic and fallen off. Right. So I had to on two speed listen to the entire season to get caught up, which is a lot. It's a lot of information.
Well, when every episode's like 3.5 hours long and there's a million of them.
Dude, 2 speed is crazy. I couldn't do 2 speed. The max I do is like 1.25, and at that point I still think it's a little bit too quick.
Just to get to like the parts that were relevant, right, then I'd slow it down. Like I'm trying to get through to like the stuff that really is important to this character in particular and the characters around him. So,
absolutely. You don't need to listen to all of like Sam Riegel's jokes at normal 1.5, normal 1 time speed.
Well, we love Sam.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone loves Sam.
It's hard too because you're sort of like when you're just there for the information,
right?
I feel like a big part of me wants to go back and listen for pleasure, because I was sort of like, just shut up, just get, what does he do though? Like,
stop laughing. I just want to find out what happens next.
Focus up. I've got to write this book. So, so I also relied on transcripts a lot to just like, if I needed to go back to a really critical episode, then I could just like go back and read it with my eyeballs, which is sometimes easier for retaining information.
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously they were wonderful. They had a ton of resources, like timestamps and video compilations and everything else. But I did want to get, like go through it and get the organic experience, even if a little speedier than normal. But yeah, so I would say if you haven't listened to the back half of series 2, you'd probably be pretty lost.
Right. Well, we should say the full title too. Critical Role, The Mighty Nein, The Nine Eyes of Lucien. And I have not watched campaign 2. So here's maybe a shameful nerdy confession of mine. I do not like watching other people play D&D. I also do not like watching other people play video games. It's a weird, I don't know. It's a thing that I have that it's a hard time to cope with, because I know there's a lot of cool content out there. But I've seen parts of it, and I have seen parts of campaign 2. I don't think I watched much of campaign 1.
It's a little different with these guys though, because definitely, you have professional voice actors like doing these characters. It definitely feels like an audio, like old timey audio drama show or whatever you would call it. But it's a little different. But yeah, I like watching people play.
Yeah, I can't argue that. Like, I'm not telling my parents to like strap in and listen to 400 hours of Critical Role to prepare for this. So it's a choice, right? Like, I think people who are really into the series and really into series 2 in particular will get a lot out of it, because, it's sort of the, so he's sort of the villain that he becomes the ultimate villain in the finale of that second series. So, but he's off screen a lot. So it's not only his backstory and sort of like his childhood, and his middle life, but then when he's off screen doing his nefarious plots, what is he up to? How does he do all those things? And also getting to know, he sort of runs with this like ragtag crew. And so getting to know them better and filling in their, backstories and characters a little more. So it's sort of a, while the heroes are doing this, what is our baddie doing?
Yeah. What's going on behind the scenes as he's plotting? Yeah. I mean, I think that's awesome. And so correct me if I'm wrong, because I've only seen parts of campaign 2, you don't have to go through all of campaign 1 to know who this guy is, right?
Totally different.
It's a completely different. That's what I thought. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, if someone's always wanted to jump into Critical Role, and then they, I'm sure a lot of people during the pandemic have tackled it as well, because, we've been sitting at home for a long time. Getting that extra backstory is, it's an excellent way to expand the lore. And, poor Matt Mercer doesn't have to do it all by himself anymore. So,
yeah, I will say, he was very involved in this book. It's not like they just sort of like hand it to you and are like, good luck. So, and honestly, he and Taliesin and the whole crew over at Critical Role were really amazing to work with. They were, I think, the perfect, and I'm not just saying this to gas them up. Like, I would just be not answering this or sidestepping this.
Sure.
But like, genuinely such a good blend of, I've worked with quite a few IPs now. Like, this is not my first rodeo.
Right.
And I think they hit the perfect balance of, here are the rules and here are the things we need you to do and here are the limitations, but we really want you to go. Like, we want your voice, we want your perspective, and we want creativity. So, we'd rather you take big swings and then we like pull you back than sort of like hedge and be really careful, which is how they usually are, right? It's like, no, like don't do anything crazy. But the great advantage of this is that it's done, right? Like the book on this is closed. We know how it ends. You're not here to like, it's not like an ongoing IP where they have to be so careful about, well, what is this character potentially going to do 10 years down the line, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't need to save anyone for anything. Most of the characters end up dead anyway, so you can just kind of like have fun in the ways that where you have room, right? Where you have room, I got to have fun. And they were really, really great about that. I think, you know, some teams are so overly cautious about, you know, not letting you take any chances, not letting you do anything a little wild. And I think, like, I mean, like I said, I do not think this book is comprehensible if you know nothing about these characters or this series. But if you are familiar with it, it's wild. Like, we really went for it.
Nice.
Like, in the first meeting, it was like House of Leaves. Let's really do something cosmic horror, something really, you know, kind of challenging and interesting. And that was exciting. I mean, that was the reason I said yes, was that they were willing to let me take some risks with it.
Well, now I'm really excited. I have not read House of Leaves, I should say, but my fiance loves that book. I've had to buy her different versions of it because she loves it so much. She's still trying to get me to read it. But like the fact that you mentioned House of Leaves, like, all right, now I definitely gotta
you should read it. That's a book that it's really spooky the first time you do it.
Okay.
And it was interesting because I'd read it years ago, and as soon as it came up as like a reference point, I was like, oh, I'll have to reread it. And I remember being so scared of it and like dreading having to reread it. But then coming back and looking at it from a technical standpoint of like, okay, how did you pull this off? Because I need to like do something adjacent to this, right? I need to use it as a touch point, but not rip it off, obviously. It's just like, how do I have it be inspired by this? And so that was actually fun. It was a much more fun experience when you're like digging through it for the technical aspects and not just letting it sort of take you over. But it's great. I mean, it's, you know, a horror classic.
So So one of my things is I'm big. I love audiobooks. I don't really read like an actual.
He never learned how. You know.
I know how to read. I know how to read. Doesn't mean no, but and like my fiance told me, like, you can't do an audiobook of that. Like, you cannot. You have to read it.
Oh yeah, like, House of Furies, or sorry, not House of Furies. That's my book. House of Leaves.
Ooh, humble brag.
I know. House of Leaves, yes. Do not do. And I'm actually really torn because there is a lot of interesting text play that we do in the Nine Eyes of Lucien, but it's gonna have such stellar people doing the audiobook that I'm really torn. I'm like, this is a do it both ways one, which I'm not even. That's not me being like, buy my book twice.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, do.
Yeah.
But I genuinely think it's such a different experience, right? It's going to be such a different experience reading it with your eyes versus listening to it. I honestly don't know how they're going to do some of the audiobook.
Interesting.
With like how wild it gets. So yeah.
Now, are the cast, like, are Matt and
I don't know yet.
Are they doing the
haven't
audio?
Told me for sure.
I mean, I feel
it
like
seems weird if they don't, but.
It's just Matt Mercer doing all the voices.
There is precedent. The last novel they did, they definitely had the relevant cast come back for that. So I really don't even want to I don't want to make any assumptions.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't.
It'd be kind of cool
know yet. But.
I mean, even if I think it would be cool if they just did like the dialogue too. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, don't make Matt Mercer read all the prose, but. That would be interesting.
It'll be sort of there'll be a general narrator,
right,
and then one or two cameos
of cool.
Like some of the characters who are in it a lot, right?
Sure.
Who would make sense to come back.
I think they did that for.
I don't know.
I think they did that for one of the Dune books. I remember when I was looking through Audible. There's one that had like a crazy cast of like movie stars and stuff. Reading different parts. I'm like, I don't want that. I just want one person. Two, if it's the Michael Kramer, Kate Redding duo,
Although sometimes I do wish that it was a mixed cast, because sometimes the voice actor, like, they'll do an ethnic person. It's like, that's so bad. That's so bad.
Yeah, it's tricky. I have my first romance novel coming out in a few weeks, and for the audiobook, right, you usually just get one person.
Sure.
And the way that book is structured is like, one chapter is like the woman, one chapter is the man, and it ping pongs back and forth. and it's a woman doing the reading, and I love her. I've worked with her before. She's stellar, but I'm so like, is it gonna be weird when it's like her doing the, well, whatever, like we just have to go with it. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, that's
their job. That's why
their job is to make it seem, like it's normal. Like I've, done a lot of audiobooks because I drive around for work a lot. And, it might be a little weird the first time you hear, the guy doing the girl's voice or vice versa. But after a while, you're just like, nope, that's just the character now. That's how the character
That
sounds.
part doesn't bother me at all. It's just like I've had it. It's like where like some person is doing like an Asian person, and then they do an Asian accent.
Apu, like,
yeah,
racist.
And it's like, oh god, I was like, I can't. Like, you're losing me part of the story. Like, just do it normal. Just do it normal.
I actually don't think I've ever had that happen before. Now that I'm thinking about it, but I could be wrong.
It's interesting too because usually they'll sort of, if they're going to make strong choices like that, I usually have had them ask, right?
Sure.
Like they'll sort of send a list of like, this is how I'm planning to do all these characters. Does this look right to you? But I suppose they probably just next to it put like something neutral.
Sure.
Then, like they didn't put like comically racist, like Arab person, right?
Yeah,
like that's
exactly.
not what they put in the note.
Yeah, no,
I mean, maybe they did. We don't know.
I don't remember. I know it was a Stephen King book, but I don't remember which book. But it sounded like a Mickey Rooney, like Breakfast at Tiffany's, like type thing. And I was like, dude, this is so bad. Like, this is so...
one thing with Stephen King is some of those books were probably recorded on tape quite a long time ago.
Perhaps.
And maybe that wasn't one of those critical notes they got.
So I have I don't know who will be doing it yet. I wish I had that answer. I'm sure they'll be announcing it relatively soon. I think they're going to do they're going to have like a mock-up of the book on stream, I think soon, which will be cool. And then I would think that around then, because usually it gets recorded like a month before the actual book comes out.
Sure.
And it's coming out in November, so I want to hope we'll know soon, but it could be longer. We might not know till like August.
Sure. So. You think you're going to be able to get a cameo in the next campaign of Critical Role?
I don't know that I'd want to. I mean, it's funny, I have a theater degree on top of a creative writing degree, but I feel very self-conscious about that stuff. Like I usually just use my own voice. Maybe I'll like change the tone or something, but I can't like just jump into any accent at any time.
Sure.
So
you mean you're not a professional voice actor like all those other guys?
No, I'm not. I'm truly not. I think I can like sustain a good character, right? Because I'm comfortable with that. But
sure.
It's definitely something I'm gonna have to like get over DMing the Star Wars thing, because now that I've watched so much Critical Role and so much Dimension 22, I fucking love Dimension 20. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I am so like, fuck, I gotta like step my game up now. Like I can't just be sitting here doing everyone in my voice. I have to actually try harder at this. So I think I'll just have to get over it.
I have the same issue. Like I want to DM, and that's my biggest thing is like, like I don't want to do everything in my voice. Like I want to do it different. So I've been playing with my niece, and like I want to throw in, and even with her, I was like, what if she makes fun of me? She's 8 years old. She's not gonna make fun of you. Like no, but what if she does? And then I'm gonna feel
8-year-olds can be cruel, you know.
I'm genuinely considering finding like a little. I had one for a costume. I wonder if I could find it or just get another one. But like a little voice modulator for like the helmet characters, right?
Yeah,
so
that would be cool.
Have the like Kylo Ren like fuzz over the Sith character.
I'm sure in like August they'll start opening up a Spirit Halloweens, and you could probably pick one up for the cheap,
Yeah, the one I had last time was like $5 and had an astonishing range of modulations.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like I kind of back myself in the corner sometimes when I'm dungeon mastering with this game that we were playing together for like 2 years. We started right when the pandemic started, and we were like, oh, we'll play it till the pandemic ends, and then it just never ended.
Still going.
Yeah. The campaign ended before the pandemic did, so that was cool. But I would get myself in the corners where like an NPC would be at like a shopkeeper or like a fisherman or something, and it's supposed to be like a throwaway NPC that they can just like buy a few things off of and then leave. And they end up having like, a whole session long conversation with him. And I'm like, oh man, I got to talk like this guy forever.
It's not our fault you made interesting NPCs, Cody. It's not our fault. We just wanted to know where he went to college, if he's married,
Yeah.
what's in the back room,
That is my number one biggest pet peeve, and what I dread as a DM is like just them just getting stuck in a loop of just like, no, something's up with this person, and I'm like, dang, truly not. Like, just move on.
I know. I try so hard to like be like, nope, I'm simply a fisherman.
Yeah, it's like, nope, there's nothing here. I think that was the hardest part of listening to Critical Role through, when I'm like listening for relevant storylines and information. When they would get in a rut with an NPC like that and just keep asking them questions, and I'm like, I can tell there's nothing here. Just go.
Yeah.
It also doesn't help that Cody's very good on the spot, just coming up with stuff. So
I also get the crew who's always like, I have this incredibly detailed, elaborate plot set up, and they just go right by it. They have no interest, could not be bothered.
Right.
No, we're just gonna go talk to this person for 45 minutes, and you're like,
oh, cool.
No, why did I prep all this? And now I just prep very little based off of that. Or actually, what I learned, it's interesting because watching this, I haven't DM'd since I've consumed 9,000 hours of Critical Role in Page 20. So I think I'll be much, much better prepared this time. But I didn't realize, no, you can just strong arm them into that shit. Like, just do it. Just if it's gonna be more fun, if it's for the best, if it's like for their own good, just do it. Just shoehorn them somewhere. And unapologetically, I realize now that it's a mistake to just be like, everything they do is the right thing to do. No, it's not. It's not.
No, the way I kind of look at it is, a little railroading is okay as long as they don't feel the train. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. And I think too, it's like you have to make it then the payoff good enough that they don't notice, right?
Absolutely.
They don't get frustrated that you're sort of guiding them somewhere because it paid off.
Right.
And that has to be it.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, I mean, it seems interesting, and you have worked on so many IPs. It's cool to see that the people at Critical Role kind of give you some freedom and, let you kind of tell the story you want to tell. I mean, I think that's what people will want to read is, some new perspective on this character that they knew very little about, to begin with. So I'm excited to check that out. That sounds cool.
Yeah, it was an interesting challenge, when you have a character who how they end up, you don't really know anything about their early life, and how do you logically set up the person they become, right? Like usually you're building from the childhood onward. Now you're set a goal of like, this is who they ultimately become, and these are the horrible things they do. So how do you? It's a really fine line to walk, because I'm not trying to exonerate this person by any stretch. He is a monster, right? Like I was very clear with them that I'm like, if you want me to take this war criminal and turn them into like an uwu cinnamon roll, we're done. Like I'm not gonna do that for you.
Exactly.
But if you want me to sort of take him through a logical progression of someone who started innocently but had many chances to sort of turn back and become a better person, and didn't take those chances when they were offered because of a critical personality flaw. Like, yes, I will do that, because that is fun and interesting and feels to me the most right for this character. So yeah, no, I mean, they were very, very cool about that. And it was really great to work with them. I mean, the other series I'm doing right now with Dungeons and Dragons, not Critical Role, is it's a middle grade like adventure series for kids, and similar there, right? Like just tons and tons of freedom, which has been a joy to just build this new sort of IP within an IP for them, and just get to like do whatever we want to do, essentially, right? As long as it fits within the general rules of Dungeons and Dragons, we get to do it. So it's been a cool like 2-year. Well, I'm writing. The second one is coming out actually the same day as the Critical Role book.
Whoa!
Completely nuts.
Competing with yourself.
Books coming out. Yeah, 2 books out on the same day. And then I'm just about to write the third one, and that'll potentially close out the series. I don't know if they want me to do more. But yeah, so it's been a cool journey of 2 years of like being embedded with these IPs that are really interested in kind of giving the author more freedom and more creativity.
That's awesome. And so you mentioned kind of some of the, how reading it over listening to it is going to be very important for some of, the art, I guess the wordplay that you've inserted. Are they going to be like little hints and nods to Dungeons and Dragons, as far as like, how do I put this? Like mechanics and stuff that someone who is used to reading a Dungeons and Dragons campaign would recognize, or is it just more?
So it's tricky because they are not. Critical Role is its own thing.
Sure.
And while they use the Dungeons and Dragons system and have partnered with them to put out
their own campaigns and adventures,
and to put out their supplementary material, in this book I can't use anything that is like D&D copyright.
No Wizards of the Coast.
So no spells or anything. Not the same spell names.
As long as it's generic fantasy enough.
Like Fireball.
Right. Like a fireball is not something they can.
Right.
Claim,
it's a ball.
Right?
It's a ball of fire. Like,
but if you say like Big B's hand or something like that, like you wouldn't be able to.
I think the place it shows up the most is stuff like with the deities, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't use specific Dungeons and Dragons deities or races that they've sort of like invented whole cloth. So if it's something that sort of lives in a amorphous fantasy
like
place,
you could say an elf. Like,
yes,
no
exactly.
problem, right?
Would you be able to
an
say
elf, an orc,
tieflings?
No.
So it would just be infernal.
That's a big one because
that's a
our
tough
main
one.
character is a tiefling.
Right.
So you would just refer to him as half infernal or half demon, or
we have all sorts of little things we do in the book to get around it. And so that was challenging. There's a lot of things you don't realize are D&D
right
until you're writing a book set in a adjacent universe, like a bag of holding. Like that's like you just take that for granted as something that's like part of every D&D campaign, but cannot be a part of this in particular. So
he's got an name, Endless
so
Sack.
a lot of little a lot of little twisty, windy things we have to do, which I'm sure will frustrate some people. Like I'm already anticipating reviews that are like, why didn't she just call it a bag of holding? Okay, and it would be like 1 star. And be like, listen, my friend, I can't do that.
Right.
And there's a reason. If you notice that there's no copyright trademark D&D words in the whole book, perhaps it will become clear.
It's obviously intentional.
I have a solution.
Yeah.
You just refer them to this episode of the podcast and then just listen here. I explain
full
it
explanation available at nerdswithfriendspodcast.com.
You would think that would work. I really tried hard to pull that with ahead of the Warcraft shit, and it doesn't make a dent. Trust me. People don't care. They form their opinion the second they run across something that annoys them in a book, and that's it. You cannot bring them back. So
it's like there's toxic fandoms everywhere.
Right. We did a recent episode about toxic fandoms.
Ooh, I'll come back for that.
We could do another one for sure.
The things I could tell you.
Yeah.
But I will say so far the Crit Role people have been wonderful.
Right.
Genuinely, just the nicest fans. Very cool, very supportive. Just interested, just curious. And I think there is something also about it just being done, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that series is over. Nothing I do here really changes anything. It just sheds new light or adds some context. So the stakes are really low in that sense of I don't think I can do anything here that'll ruin your vibe with that series. So that is partially why it is so nice too, right? The stakes are very low. I'm not writing a book about the current series they're in, so they're not trying to milk me for secrets or trick me into telling them something.
Right.
But so far they've been very, very cool, and that has been a lovely experience.
Yeah, I think in general, what our experience of the critters has been is they are a very positive community for the most part, where the one of the episodes we did about some toxic fandoms recently was the Obi-Wan Kenobi backlash and stuff that I still don't understand, But you know,
she's black. Don't you get it?
I still don't get it. Like,
That's
I understand.
No, I mean, but that's exactly what it was.
That's all it was.
Put a black woman in Star Wars.
Yeah,
there's
no black women in space, obviously. No, yeah, it's so silly when that kind of stuff comes up.
It's so stupid.
And luckily that's with Critical Role. Their fandom seems to be and I think it's because Dungeons and Dragons in general, we, as fans, we've always been on like the ultra nerdy side of the spectrum.
Well, it's always been the non-popular outcast people that would play. So it's like, oh yeah, we'll take anyone.
Yeah, we'll take anyone. This in Stranger Things.
There's a bit of how that. I think that is where the toxicity began, though, right? Because
gatekeeping.
Right. Yeah. If you're all the outcasts, then when someone who is like a popular quote unquote person comes along and wants to participate, it's a threat, right? When a woman comes along and wants to participate, it's a threat because this is just not what you're used to, and so you anticipate that it will somehow be ruined or tainted when it's just going to change. Like we don't have to be so allergic to change.
Absolutely.
All the time.
Yeah, and I think being a Critical Role property and not necessarily like you're not writing necessarily a new adventure for Wizards of the Coast. Mm-hmm. In built into their fandom, they have a rotating cast of guests who come on the show, and they're always very conscious of how they kind of like talk to each other and stuff, and no one gets outright nasty to each other. They're all friends, right? So it's kind of cool to have that built into the show itself.
I feel with the critters, the rule lawyers is what you would get probably, and I've definitely seen those. Like, how come this character?
Yeah, we're not like that in the book. It's not like that. There's no rules in this book. I mean, there's some, but I think with like their fandom actually tries to hold Critical Role accountable and be like, do better, try harder, not where a lot of fans are like, no, go backwards.
Yeah.
Get rid of all this diversity, get rid of all this inclusivity. Like they want more, which is incredible, right? Like that's what you want. You should have a fandom that's like, yeah, you're trying, but like you mess up sometimes and that's okay, but you need to apologize. And also like we could do more and better. And, I was nervous taking this book on. The main character is like agender, right? Like male and female associating and pansexual, and I was like, well, I'm one of those things, but I'm not like, I'm a woman as far as I know. Maybe I'll change my mind eventually, but so they were very supportive in like, if you need resources, if you need to talk to people, how can we best empower you to like do this character correctly. And I felt very strongly about that too. Right off the bat, I was like, are you going to be willing to like, give me a sensitivity reader or give me people to talk to? Because like, I want to make sure I don't offend anyone. I don't do any harm here. I really do want to, show this person in their correct light. So, and they were so cool that they're 100% supportive about that. So.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a dream working experience, rather than just, you say, hey, write this book and then, cut it apart in the editing process and not tell you why kind of thing. It's good to have that resource there that kind of, helps you along the way kind of thing. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be awesome.
I know, but
so.
now
I mean, I love it. I think it's one of the weirdest, coolest things I've ever written, which usually you don't get to do that with IP, right? Usually it's very like, it's not going to take any chances. It's just going to do what it needs to do.
Very safe.
Very safe. And I think this is a very not safe book, which is great. And not safe in that, like, I don't want people to feel like offended. It's a safe place. I promise it's a safe place. But it's scary and weird. Oh, and I also wanted to circle back to your question about, like, is there anything in here about, like, that is, like, more of the game itself of playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I can't use any of the copyright material, but there is some stuff that I tried to like sneak in there that feels very fourth wall breaking in the sense of what it's like to have someone like DM to you.
Excellent. So. That's you put it the way I was thinking it. I just couldn't articulate.
We play with some really interesting perspective and form and stuff like that. So
just like you said, natural bente. You just got to change it up a little bit, just different languages.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's awesome. If we've learned anything from that show Arcane, is that there's a hunger for this. I guess it would be auxiliary content, right, where we're learning the backstory of characters. So I'm excited. I think anyone who is a fan of the show will enjoy it too. Now, I do have some selfish author questions for you.
Sure.
And if I think they're just interesting topics. So first, I wanted to bring up the fact that you may or may not have heard that Brandon Sanderson broke all the Kickstarter records ever created or whatever.
Did he break the Critical Role one?
Yeah, he is the highest funded Kickstarter.
How much did he raise?
Like $41 million.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
I'm happy to say I was early in there. I was in there before he broke what he wanted to
Yeah,
reach.
exactly. But my question about that is, do you have any thoughts on like the future of publishing and how that may have like changed the game a little bit? Do you think we're going to see more upstart like crowd-funded publishing in the future, or is it just a one-off because he's freaking Brandon Sanderson?
Yeah, no. I really, first of all, that sounds great until you have to fulfill $40 million of product.
Sure.
That's my heart exploded at that number. Like,
yeah.
What? Like, how could I ever do something worth $40 million? Right? Like that, the pressure of that would destroy me. Like
I would have a panic attack.
That's not how I work.
Sure.
Yeah. Right. Like I want to write the book in a vacuum and then see what someone thinks it's worth.
Sure.
Right. I think for me personally, it would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Plus I suck at logistics and answering emails and all the things it would require to do that correctly. So I think this is a fluke. I truly do. I because I'm not a Brandon Sanderson fan. I'm not a hater. I haven't read any of his stuff. I have one of his books, but I haven't started it yet.
Well, he's great, but it's. I think that I
respect his hustle. We work on a very similar production schedule. I mean, it's a lot. He writes fast. I really respect it. But he did so much community building.
Sure.
He did so much trust building. He did so much. He was already a huge, important property himself.
Right.
And and it's very, very hard to cut through the noise in publishing and establish yourself as someone that visible and that desirable. So
sure.
I genuinely am struggling to think of another person who could get anywhere near that much outside of someone like She Who Shall Not Be Named, and maybe like George R.R. Martin. But even then, I think people would have a lot of suspicion and a lot of mistrust with him.
Yeah, he'd have to write a book.
Yeah, I was going to say Mr. Martin. I feel like they wouldn't because it's been taking so long.
No.
So.
But that's what I'm saying is he did so much groundwork with that, right? With building trust and proving that he can produce on a really tight schedule,
right?
And to have that consistency and sort of that whole thing going. And he just did so much community building, like his social media presence, his website, he really nailed that, which is something that most authors struggle with or don't do at all because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of work outside of your job already. So I don't think we're gonna. This is not like, to me, this is not any sign other than a sign of how much work he's done to build a community. Like that's the only signifier to me, is that it's just a reflection of his hard work and the sort of love that people have for him.
Right.
I do kind of find it upsetting in the sense of like, there's so much other fantasy out there that just does not get the eyeballs on it and really should. Like, there are so many fantasy writers I know who are so criminally underrated and really deserve to have those giant fandoms too, and they just don't get it. And so
shout them out.
Well, here's one thing that might make you feel a little bit better, is once he got all this like publicity because of the Kickstarter, he went on with his Kickstarter and went and supported every single creative writing Kickstarter on the website. And so I got like 60 emails saying like, "Oh, Brandon Sanderson back this, Brandon Sanderson back this."
No, and
so
the thing is, again, this is not a personal beef.
Sure.
Like, do your thing, man. Like, get your coin. I am not hating on that. I think it's astonishing, right?
Yeah. But you're right. There are people out there who won't get anywhere near that notoriety just because of they don't get the eyeballs.
His original career is in traditional publishing, which is where these problems start, right?
Sure.
It's the fact that like his book, whenever it would come out at, I would assume Tor. I don't know who publishes him.
I think Tor is where most of his mainline books come. Yeah.
Like the way this stuff tends to shake out is that a few big headliners like him get a vast majority of the marketing budget. And then it just creates this sort of feedback loop of like, oh, well, he's an automatic bestseller, so we'll just keep promoting him. And it's like, well, you would have other people rise to that level if you equaled that out, right? Like the amount of attention and hype and marketing that tends to get driven towards these same like 5 authors at any given place is a little disheartening, and it makes it feel like a real uphill battle when you're like in the mid-list trying to cut through that noise and say like, hey, like my stuff matters too. I wish you would kick me like $50,000 of that marketing budget. Right. So.
You know, it's very interesting. Same thing happens in the podcast game. You know, like there's a bunch of
freaking Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Stealing up all of our limelight.
No, but it is in every creative media situation, right?
Like movies the same way, you know, like
like how many famous directors just get the same every they become a darling and then they just get to do literally anything they want and however they want to do it, while there's all these incredible movies being made that no one will ever hear about, and they deserve as much attention if not more so, right? So yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's just the way those industries work, but it's an unfortunate thing. And I see why he would be like, I don't want to operate in that anymore. I want to operate outside of that. But for me, it's a little tough because you did start there though. Like those people did make your career initially.
Right. And I mean,
how you feel about that, Cody? Brandon Sanderson is the Joe Rogan of books.
It's okay.
I did not say that.
No.
Do not put me near that sentence.
That's gonna be the YouTube headline.
No, thank you.
It was really funny when he had like a stream when the Kickstarter was ending. He came out as like his jokey alter ego as B Money, where he had a Black Lotus Magic the Gathering card like around a gold chain. With
Are you serious?
Yeah, but he's like such a nerd that it was really funny.
I'll be curious to see how it all shakes out.
Sure. The fulfillment is going to be intense, but
I want my book signed. I don't care if he's to sign millions.
Oh, dude.
I want my copy signed.
I feel like that guy never stops signing books. He's just always doing it.
It's also for me, like I enjoy the sort of level of editing and feedback that I get from the sort of, the chain of people that will look at my book and find problems, issues, ways it can be better, etc. So I frequently have like fantasies of being like, I'm going to self-publish. And then I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't want to market this all on my own. I don't want to do that all on my own. And I don't have like him. I don't have the infrastructure and the money to just like dredge that up. Right. And be like, I'm going to hire 3 people to like, fulfill all my stuff and do all my giveaways and run my social media. Like it's a 1-person operation over here. Right. So
you don't have it yet. I believe in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does have a huge team, and I think that's the only thing that really makes that whole thing possible.
Oh, you'd have to, yeah.
He's got that whole Dragon Steel Entertainment or whatever he's got. Okay, my last selfish author question, just because I love insight like that, because so we mentioned George R. Martin earlier. Mm-hmm. He and one of our other favorite authors, Patrick Rothfuss, have historically now.
Your favorite? I don't know who that is.
Patrick Rothfuss? You haven't read Name of the Wind?
No.
Oh my God, it's great. Anyway, so famously they have not completed the next book in their series for like 10 years. Or I think it's 11 years.
Do you want to hear a cool factoid?
Sure.
The Critical Role book is my 20th book that will be published.
Nice.
I started my entire career those 20 books fits inside the space they have not published a book.
Yes, I love it.
I just think that's like a fun, cute fact.
That is a fun fact.
I keep in my back pocket.
I love it. So I'm not looking for a super spicy take if you don't want to give it, but where do you think do they owe their fans a little something, or is it their art and, they can do with it what they want or not do with it what they want? What's kind of, as someone who also, has fans and writes books and has, expectations from their readers, how do you think, I don't know, what do you think about that situation with those two?
I have a really, in publishing, I think, unpopular take on this. I want to preface this by saying I do not know either of these people. Right. I have never met either of them. I have zero connection to them personally.
Sure.
I do not know Patrick's work. I've obviously read all of what is available of Game of Thrones.
Right.
I have a Game of Thrones tattoo.
Me too.
Wait, what do you have?
I have the Stark Wolf on my ankle. I got it for free at Comic-Con.
At Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, for free.
Yeah.
I have the
they let you cut
saying down my leg.
Oh, nice.
The hepatitis B was free too.
No, it was very clean, and they let me cut in line.
The regret was free.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'm like doing a little bit of establishing of the fact that like
that's fine.
I'm a fan, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm not.
And don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan too. I will read anything those two write. I'm just a little impatient, perhaps.
If someone hears this and wants to be like, "Well, she's jealous," like, yeah, of course I am. Fuck yeah, sure. I'm jealous. Like, of course I would kill to have their careers. But as a person who suffers from diagnosed ADHD inattentive type, mm-hmm. I am very familiar with the I don't want to do this anymore feeling of a series. I have now completed nearly 3 series, so I get it. I know how it feels to write that first book in a series, then realize you have at least 2 more to do and be like, oh God, what have I done? I'm now,
sure.
I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I give up, right?
Right.
I personally believe that you enter into a social contract with your readers when you say this is a series of however many books.
Sure.
And you also enter into a legal contract with your publisher saying that you will deliver a certain amount of things. Mm-hmm. And it is punishable theoretically if they ever actually like used those contracts against someone.
Right.
You can be forced to pay back your advance or whatever the stipulation is, right? And I don't know their contracts. Maybe they both know that they're going to take too long, so they don't have that kind of, I don't know. Like, I can't comment, but I know that if I don't deliver a book and it just never shows up for years and years and years, I'm getting in trouble, like deep trouble.
Right.
And not just legal money trouble, but like blacklisted from the industry trouble.
Right.
So I find it very curious that there seems to be this threshold at which a successful white male mm-hmm. fantasy author can just not deliver, lie, obfuscate, become very mean with their fandom, and still somehow continue to have professional cachet in this industry.
Absolutely.
I find that very interesting because I saw a thread on Twitter where someone was like, can anyone name a single female or author of color who just done the same thing?
Right.
Who began, like anyone who's just not these people that started a series, just stopped in the middle of it, and it was popular enough that there was backlash. No one could produce a single example.
Right. Yeah.
So there is like 2 sets of rules here in this industry, and
mm-hmm.
I find it really pathetic, frankly, and upsetting. And it just seems like there's grace for certain types of people who suffer from ADHD or whatever, depression, and there is not grace for other people. And that's not cool.
Yeah.
And I also think that it's just a situation where you do owe those things to your readers.
Right.
You started this, that you can't now finish it is your problem, frankly, and you should be more upfront about why and a more accurate idea of like when they can expect something.
Right.
Because if you go into the fucking A Song of Ice and Fire subreddit, it is still just the saddest place to be on earth. Like, if Disney is the happiest place, that is the saddest place. Because every 4 days, someone makes a post like, guys, I really think it's going to happen this year. And then 900 of us have to be like, it's super not.
It's like, not ever happening.
Do yourself a favor. Leave this place. Unsub. And then one day, maybe, if you're lucky, you will get to come back here and make a like condescending post telling us how wrong we are.
I know. It's so
my prediction. Martin is waiting to die, so he doesn't have to finish it.
So Sanderson can finish it?
And so Sanderson can finish it is what I think is going to happen.
No.
There's so many people
so
that
Madeleine
you can pass
can
the
finish
torch
it.
to.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Would you take it, Madeleine? Would you take Game of Thrones?
Oh, my God. I don't know if I could deal with that pressure. But
yeah, I do, because I actually think I could. Because I think I see what he's doing. I think I see the twist. I think I see what's going on.
And anything could be better than that last season of the show.
Sure, right? The bar is so low, right?
Right.
And that's what's extra frustrating is like the bar is on the ground, George.
Right.
Bunny hop over it. Like, anything you do is going to be better than what we got.
He's had the biggest beta read ever. From just
but
people who
I
watch
just think
that
it's
show.
like when you have those resources, you have any number of talented people willing to take this baton across the finish for you, and all we see are you working on other things like YT and all this other stuff.
And Elden Ring, which is awesome.
Did people get mad? I was about to. Did people get mad at him for that?
I mean, if you look at the story of Elden Ring, he didn't put that much work into it.
That's probably true.
He literally named all the.
He should never do anything else. Right? Again, I'm like, this is sounding very angry and bitter. It's not. It's just a frustration of like,
oh yeah,
I don't get this. I don't get this perspective. I think the perspective of people who are like, he doesn't owe you anything, and it's art, and he can never give it to you, and that's just fine. Is like that you're just preemptively excusing yourself from any kind of responsibility or accountability. Like, you're worried that you wouldn't do it, so you don't want him to be held to any kind of standard.
Yeah, I've never really bought into that.
Ludicrous.
That stance.
Like, I have to turn in my work. I have to finish books. I have to do, and if I don't, there are consequences. So this idea that like some people just exist outside of consequences because these books are so good. Well, newsflash, they're not done. So they could suck at the end.
Right, that's
so
true.
Why are you just like preemptively giving them the pass that like, oh, it will be brilliant? You don't fucking know that. You don't know anything about it. We saw the end of Game of Thrones. It was garbage. Like, so to me, it's just so weird. It's so out of whack. It's this like weird outlier in the industry that I frankly do not understand and find really troubling in certain ways.
Yeah.
And no, I think they owe people books. And if someone wants to tell me I'm wrong or a bitch or whatever, that's fine. I am a bitch and I'm right. So,
think about it. It's like paying for a 7-course meal and you got like 4 courses.
Don't worry, guys. The dessert is coming and it's going to be fantastic.
And I think there's like, to me, if it had been like 5 or 6 years, it's like, that's okay. Those books are getting bigger. They're longer. They're more complicated. There's more characters. He probably has less editing oversight. So it's like, he's going to just get more stuff in it, right? There's just going to be more in it.
Right.
But I think when you run on 10, 11, 15 years, whatever the fuck, it's like, okay, just say you're not going to do it then, right? Like, just say you're not going to do it and let someone else finish it, or at least just give your fans the like, you know what, this is all I got. Sorry. Like, I think it's really frustrating when it's like, I suffer with the same shit. I get on contracts that I don't want to fulfill. I change my mind. I get distracted. I find a new idea I like better, but you signed the contract. You made the promise. You said this thing is coming. So I don't know. To me, it's like, I can't imagine ever being put in the scenario where I would just get to like opt out. And be like, no, sorry,
I don't know.
Bye.
It's coming eventually.
And then I'm just going to go work on other stuff that's like shinier right now, that pays money right now. You know, it's weird that he's just, I guess to me what's strange, and Patrick is not having really the same experience, but it's weird that George R. R. Martin is being rewarded for this. In many ways.
Yeah,
he gets to do Elden Ring. He gets to do this whole other anime or whatever he's doing, right? It's like, why are you being rewarded for not putting books out? Right.
I think
why don't
for some reason
blacklisted?
Exactly. I think for some reason he is still very much this like, I don't know, darling of the industry for some reason, where, you know, I think at least from what I've experienced as a Patrick Rothfuss I'm a fan of his books that he has written, but not a fan of him as a person. I think, people are a little bit more critical of him just because he's always on these streams saying, oh, yeah, it'll come when it's coming, and I don't owe it to you, and he's very standoffish to his fans. Where, people see George R. R. Martin in an interview on The Late Show or whatever, and he's this old, nerdy man, and people are like, oh, okay, well, he's old, so let him do it.
Yeah.
But
no, and the
it's
thing
just
is, like, I want to separate their right as people
Sure.
to like live peaceful, respected lives. Like, they don't deserve to be like hate mob. They
Absolutely.
don't deserve
Right.
to be, whatever, shunned from society. That's not what I'm saying.
But as a professional,
there are
it's
no
different.
professional consequences for these men.
Right.
And it's very
Right.
surprising and weird to me when you watch, like, in the film industry, a woman is like kind of grumpy a day on set and she's blackballed
Sure.
from the right, or like she had the audacity to like name her abuser and she never works again. It's
Right.
like, what are we doing here? Like, why, if you don't deliver on what you said you would, you still get like huge opportunities
Right.
that any other person would give anything to do? Like, I don't know. And the thing is, like, George, I'm not familiar with Patrick's work, so I really can't speak to this. George,
Well, they're great, but don't start reading them.
I know. Well, that's the other thing, right? I'm not going to. But the first 3 books of Game of Thrones are brilliant. Like, they're
Right.
great. They're fantastic. They absolutely earned him the fame that he was getting at the time,
Sure.
and they earned him the show and everything else. But I just feel like pretending like these adult men are like completely free of consequence, or like
Right.
like powerless, like they have no control over their lives or no control over
Right.
like, I am in therapy every week being like, do I need to get on Adderall? Like, my ADHD, sometimes it is so intense that I just cannot focus. I can't work. Recovering from COVID, I had brain fog. Like, my productivity spiraled.
Oh, wow.
Spiraled out. Like, I used to be able to pull down 7,000 words a day like that for 2 weeks in a row. I could write
Right.
a book in 2 weeks because I could just sit down, hammer it out, work my ass off. Now, some days I'm lucky if I get 500 words out.
Right.
Like, that's how bad the COVID recovery has been mixed
Sure.
with my ADHD.
Of
So
course.
it's like, there are solutions and there are things you might have to do. There are choices you might have to make. But to me, I grapple with that stuff, and I'm nowhere near as famous as
Right.
those people.
Right.
So I'm sure they are torn up about it. I'm sure there's a lot of guilt. I'm sure they lose sleep over it. But man, like,
I'm sure the pile of money helps.
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I'm
People
sure
just keep
they're
throwing it
weeping
at 'em.
into their money beds. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating. It just feels like there's a little bit of iniquity there in
Yeah.
terms of how people are treated in this industry. And I also am so interested in, like, well, what's the runway on this grace period? Like,
Yeah. Like, where does it end?
Like,
Yeah.
like how long do we just like continue to be in this shared delusion that these books are
Right.
coming, and that like it's okay and it's cool because he said it's fine and he's just taking whatever, it just takes the time it takes. Like, I don't know. To me, it's a psychologically very curious situation, and
I 100%
I obviously
agree.
have a lot of spicy thoughts about it. I did not.
No,
I'm a little hungry, so
That's okay. No, I
I need a
love.
Snickers or something.
Yeah.
We need to get her on without eating more.
Yeah.
I know. I'm just like chugging green tea and not eating. It's great. It's great.
Well, no, that was awesome. I mean, we totally agree with you over here. It is very frustrating, and as much as I loved Elden Ring, like, he obviously didn't put a bunch of work. He named every bad guy in that game starts with the initials G, R, or M, like every
They
single
do?
one. Yeah. So
I
there's
didn't notice that.
There's
Oh, wow.
Margit, Morgoth, Moog, Melania, Mikella, Melina. Then there's Godfrey, Godric, Godskin Duo.
Look at you just rattling these off.
I know, I've
It's
played that game a
incredible.
lot. Too much.
And I'm like 10 hours in.
It's great. But, like I said, I don't think he had that much to do with it.
Yeah, and again, like, I think too, people get really nervous about like, oh, if I say something, George won't like me. And I'm
Sure.
like, I would say this to his face. Like,
Right.
he's not a dumb baby. Like,
Right.
he's not a baby person at a computer. He's
And we're
a
not-
grown-ass man
Yeah.
who writes like graphic, violent, complex shit.
Right.
I think he can take someone being like, hey, George, that's kind of
Yep.
poopy of you. Like,
Yeah.
that's poopy, and you should stop, and you should like be honest with yourself.
And I don't think either you or us are saying anything unreasonable. Now if book what was it, book 3 or 4, whatever the last Game of Thrones book was, the Feast of Crows or whatever.
Dance of the Dragons, I think.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, Feast of Crows is the one that's supposed to come, right?
I don't know.
No,
who
Winds
knows?
of Winter.
It's been so long. I don't remember any of the titles anymore. Anyway, so if that came out 2 years ago, it's a different discussion. But it's like, man, it has been unreasonably long. I think someone did the math where like if either one of them had written 14 words a day, they would have been done by now with a 100,000 word book. So
yeah, I think there's also like a different conversation in terms of, I don't know Patrick's process. I know George very famously talks about not planning a lot of stuff and just kind of letting the characters take him where they're going to go. And it's like, yeah, that's great until you're 4 books deep.
Right.
And
in a book, in a series like
that. All this stuff is like, everyone's on these different paths and on these different roads and they all have to meet up. And, I outline religiously because of that. Yeah. I never want to get to that point where I don't know what's coming. Because as a person with ADHD, that makes it impossible to work. Sure. I have to know. I have to see what's ahead of me in order to feel like I can get there.
Right.
And so I feel like maybe instead of writing, he needs to just take a year and outline, right? And just hash this out on a huge map, on a huge whiteboard. Like I'll visualize with that kind of stuff because, and this is stupid. I'm sure he's tried. Like I'm not his mom. Like I'm sure he's good. I'm sure he's tried literally fucking everything, right? I'm sure he's desperate to finish. I'm sure he cares passionately. It's his child, right? But like, yeah, it just it sucks. It's like I could see how you would get yourself into a tricky situation where you don't even know how to write your way out. Like I don't even think it's the physical writing at this point.
Right.
I think it's the how to get there. Every moment to moment, how do we get there sort of thing.
Maybe you should outline for him. And like, hey, this is what you're going to do. All right, buddy? This is how much you're going to write. This is what you're going to do.
It's so curious to me that you can have the show out, which ostensibly he gave them
you would think he would give them like a, an outline,
Yeah, he gave them the big tentpole events. So it's like, okay, well, if you know that these things have to happen, then like, oh, yeah.
That's probably what it was.
I can't explain it.
Yeah.
That's probably what, hey, this is where I was planning on going with it. Oh, wait, everyone hated it?
Well,
everyone hated it? Oh, fuck.
I'm sure that didn't help.
Okay.
That didn't help.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know where it's going. Yeah. That was my idea.
I get like a bad Goodreads review before my book comes out. I'm like, I'm off with this. I'm terrible. I'm never writing again. I will be moving to the woods and becoming a bog witch. Good night. Like that. So I get it. Having America and the world hate the way your beloved series ended.
Yeah.
Can't feel good. Can't feel motivating. I get it. Again, I am compassionate to his situation.
Yeah.
But I am critical of the systems that allow it to continue.
Exactly. I think that's the biggest thing for sure.
But even if that was his thing, all right, do something different. They didn't like that. Do something else. No one's gonna be mad at you for doing that.
Honestly, too, I don't think people are necessarily mad with the main plot points that happened in the last season. It was the execution. And it's completely different when you're trying to do 6 episodes of a show that are an hour long, 45 minutes or whatever, and writing, several books. So I don't know. Yeah. It's interesting. We can't speak for them. So best thing I think we can do is hope that both of those guys eventually get around to it.
I wish them well. I hope that whatever is causing this is resolved for them. Right. It's got to be a terrible feeling. I know what it feels like to be stuck. And of course, like the great outcome is everyone gets to read the end of the series they want to read, and they get to feel accomplished and successful and like they've achieved something, right? Like that would be the best case scenario. I guess it just it's very interesting to me the way that it's playing out.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you going and giving your opinion on that kind of stuff, because that stuff always interests me, and I know it's more of like the business side of it, which is maybe not as interesting.
Baseball.
Yeah, inside baseball. I love that.
I'll never work in fantasy again. Said all those things.
I'm sure.
Sorry, George. I love your books.
No, you're gonna finish. You're gonna be the one finishing Game of Thrones. I see it now.
We have made predictions on the show. Yeah. We have made calls that have happened. So you don't know.
We're really good at we've been really spot on in naming Marvel movies and plot lines and stuff. So who knows? Maybe this is our next one.
I don't know if 3 middle grade D&D books, 1 Warcraft book, and 1 Critical Role book will be the thing that wins me.
You don't know.
Game of Thrones.
No. it's just a road, just steps on a road towards that finish line.
You never know. You never know.
So I have a selfish question now.
Oh my God, I was trying to end it, Chris.
I know, but I have a selfish question.
I have nowhere to be.
Okay, as long as we're not keeping you.
I sensed it coming. That's why I was like, I'm going to throw it in there before
cool.
you. Matt Mercer and crew, are they really that nice? Are they really?
Yes, they're so nice.
The reason why I ask is we had some people in the D&D community that we thought were really nice that turned out to be monsters. And I just want to make sure.
I mean,
yeah,
monsters is harsh, but yeah, not great people. Yeah.
I know a few of those people from the way back when I lived in LA, like 7 years ago. I lived in LA for like 5 years, and it was funny. It was sort of in the fringes of that friend group. Our friend group's sort of Venn diagram overlapped.
Nice.
And it's so interesting now to see how far like this empire that they've built.
Right.
But like me and Erica Ishii go way back, and
nice.
She's a genuinely sweet, delightful person. Yeah, I mean, I don't know all of them, right? And on this project, I really only worked with Matt and Taliesin, but they were both super, super great, really helpful, really, really friendly, and really, like, again, very open to letting me do what I wanted to do, as long as it, played within the boundaries of what they needed. So, yes, from my experience of the ones that I know, yes, they're lovely people.
Excellent.
Oh, so you might have run into B. Dave Walters, too, who we had
last week.
Last week? No,
or 2 weeks ago. Sorry, 2 weeks ago.
I don't know. I know
Giant beast of a man.
Yeah, he's like 8 feet tall.
Yeah. He did a bunch of work on WildStar, didn't he?
He might have. The thing he most recently did that we had him on for, he DM'd for all the Stranger Things kids.
No, I don't know. I don't know B. Dave Walters.
Oh, well, he's
wonderful human being,
gentleman and a scholar. Well, cool. Critical Role, The Mighty Nein, The Nine Eyes of Lucien, out in November. Do you know the actual the date?
So that, and then the second book in the Dungeon Academy series, which is called Tourney of Terror. That they're both out on November 1st.
November 1st
of this year. My first romance novel is out August 2nd, so about a month from now.
Excellent.
And
what's that one called?
Yeah, The Proposition.
Oh, nice.
And it's a little Regency historical romance. And then the others are in November. So
what's the age range for Tourney?
Sorry?
The age range for Tourney, like what the kids?
Oh, like 9 and up. Even younger, maybe like 7, 8.
Probably get it for your niece.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it for my niece. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also a companion set of books that are even younger, like early reader, so that like if you're learning to read, you can do those as well.
Those will be good for Christian.
There we go. So I don't have to do audiobooks.
We've established he's illiterate.
Sounded out. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great, and they have gorgeous illustrations by this artist Tim Probert. He's incredible. I mean, I cannot believe how fast he turns out art for us. It's unreal. They're super, super cute. They're fully illustrated, and there's a vegan owlbear who is the light of my life and probably my greatest contribution to Dungeons & Dragons. So,
there you go. That's so cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and talking to us and giving us some inside info. We're excited to see all the stuff you come out with next. Where can people find you, follow you, and everything else? Go ahead and plug whatever else you want to plug.
Yeah. Come call me a bitch for all my opinions on Twitter.
Hey, don't do that. Be nice.
It's at Authorou, AUTHOROUX. I am the same on Instagram. And that's it. I don't have anything else. So
very cool.
And if you're serious about a toxic fandom episode, we'd be down to do it again.
Yeah, next time, the next Marvel property comes out that everyone shits on,
sure.
I love it. I feel like Thor: Love and Thunder next is probably there's gonna be some stuff.
It's Sunday.
I'm seeing it Saturday.
I'm the one person on earth who did not like Thor Ragnarok. It's actually how my partner and I knew we were destined to be together.
Nice.
Is that there was a late night confession of like, I have to tell you something. You're gonna be really mad.
Oh no.
I didn't like Thor Ragnarok.
Oh,
I was like, God. Me too! We were the two people in the world who hated that movie.
Oh my God, I loved it. So
well, now I want to know why.
And I say that as a diehard Taika Waititi fan. Yeah. I just hated it. I know I'm gonna hate this one, but who cares? We're gonna go have fun. So.
It's
Shout out Stu. I'm pretty sure my friend Stu is in it.
Oh, very cool.
And Johnny, Stu and Johnny are in it. So.
Shout out to Stu and Johnny.
We're ending the episode. I really want to know why. Maybe on the next time we have you on.
Next time, yeah.
Next time.
Well, thanks again for spending the time with us. We appreciate it. You guys can follow us at Nerds with Friends on all the social media. We hack off the S at the end of Nerds with Friends because it's too long for Twitter.
Someone took it.
Yep. And check out patreon.com/Nerds with Friends to help support the show. We appreciate it. Madeleine, thanks again. We'll have you on next time. We need some spicy comments because that was great. Thank you again. And to all the nerds out there, remember, you're not alone. You're with friends. This is Nerds with Friends. Thank you and good night.